How Broadcom quietly built a trillion-dollar AI empire. If Nvidia is the face of artificial intelligence, Broadcom is its skeleton. Hidden inside the racks of hyperscale data centers, Broadcom's chips do two things better than almost anyone else: build custom brains for the world's biggest tech companies and connect them together at staggering scale. First, the brains. Broadcom co-designs custom AI accelerators, specialized processors built hand-in-hand with hyperscalers. These aren't chips you'll ever find in a consumer laptop. They're purpose-built ASICs, tuned for the unique workloads of companies like Google, Meta, or Amazon. The advantage? Each design locks Broadcom into the roadmap of the customer for years. Once you've been designed into a hyperscaler's infrastructure, you're nearly impossible to rip out. But silicon without interconnect is useless. And this is where Broadcom's second empire rises: AI networking. Every large language model, every generative AI system, requires thousands of processors talking to each other at near light speed. Nvidia prefers InfiniBand, but most hyperscalers don't want to be locked into a proprietary fabric. Broadcom seized this moment with its Tomahawk and Jericho Ethernet families, switches and routers that can knit together clusters of 1 million processors. Their latest Jericho 4 fabric router is designed precisely for this world, scaling bandwidth and lowering latency so that AI training doesn't collapse under its own weight. This dual engine, custom accelerators and AI fabrics, forms Broadcom's silicon empire. It's an empire built less on flashy branding and more on quiet indispensability. The chips are invisible to most of us, but they're the wiring of the AI boom. Of course, empires come with risks. Broadcom's biggest customers are just a handful of hyperscalers, and if any decide to shift strategy or insource their designs, the empire's foundations could tremble. But for now, the company sits at the center of the world's most important build-out: the infrastructure of artificial intelligence. Software fortress. If Broadcom's silicon empire powers the machines, its software fortress controls the flow of digital life inside them. And that fortress was built not from invention, but from acquisition. In 2018, Broadcom stunned Wall Street by buying CA Technologies for nearly $19 billion. At the time, it looked bizarre. Why would a semiconductor company want mainframe software? Broadcom's CEO, Hock Tan's reasoning was simple. Software carries 90% plus gross margins and sticky contracts with Fortune 500 companies. If hardware gave Broadcom cash flow, software gave it predictability. A year later, Tan doubled down, acquiring Symantec's enterprise security division for $10.7 billion. Overnight, Broadcom owned one of the world's largest cybersecurity portfolios. The strategy was clear: buy entrenched, must-have software franchises, strip out complexity, and lock in recurring subscriptions. But the boldest move came in 2023, with the $61 billion takeover of VMware. VMware wasn't just another acquisition. It was the crown jewel of private and hybrid cloud computing. From virtualization to multi-cloud management, VMware software sits in hundreds of thousands of enterprises worldwide. Broadcom immediately began reshaping it, cutting product SKUs, bundling everything into VMware Cloud Foundation, and pushing customers toward long-term subscription deals. The effect? Rising margins, but also rising anger. Customers complained of price hikes and reduced flexibility. Some analysts warned that workloads could migrate away over the next 3 years. For Broadcom, though, the calculus is familiar. The company doesn't need to be universally loved. It needs to be indispensable. CA keeps the world's mainframes running. Symantec keeps enterprises secure. VMware keeps corporate cloud stitched together. Each layer adds another wall to Broadcom's fortress. The fortress model works because it creates recurring cash flow, billions every quarter, that can fund the next leap in semiconductors. The silicon empire is expensive to run. The software fortress is the treasury that pays for it. Yet the fortress has cracks. Competitors like Nutanix are circling, public cloud alternatives are maturing, and customers are questioning Broadcom's heavy-handed tactics. Still, for now, the software fortress stands tall, a high-margin bastion that makes Broadcom one of the most unusual hybrids in technology, a semiconductor titan and a software landlord rolled into one. The backlash. Empires don't grow without resistance. For Broadcom, the pushback came loudest after the VMware deal closed. Almost overnight, VMware customers found their world rewritten. Broadcom slashed product SKUs, bundled everything into a single offering called VMware Cloud Foundation, and pushed clients toward multi-year subscription contracts. For Broadcom, it was efficiency. For many customers, it felt like a squeeze. Information technology managers complained of steep price hikes. Longtime VMware partners saw their reseller agreements gutted. Industry analysts warned that as many as 10–15% of workloads could migrate away over the next 3 years. Competitors like Nutanix seized the moment, positioning themselves as friendlier alternatives. This wasn't Broadcom's first backlash. The company faced similar criticism after acquiring Symantec Enterprise, streamlining support, cutting smaller accounts, and prioritizing only the largest customers. But VMware was different. It wasn't just security software. It was the backbone of data centers around the globe. And when you touch the backbone, everyone feels it. Regulators also took notice. The $61 billion VMware deal was scrutinized across multiple jurisdictions. Some warned Broadcom's aggressive playbook could trigger antitrust friction if customers were locked in too tightly. Even in semiconductors, risks linger. Broadcom's AI empire rests on a handful of hyperscale clients. If any of those giants shift strategy, design their own chips, or lean more heavily into Nvidia's ecosystem, Broadcom could feel the shockwaves. In short, the backlash is twofold: software customers questioning loyalty, and hardware customers holding the keys to concentration risk. For now, Broadcom's margins keep climbing. But the company's challenge is no longer just engineering chips or bundling software. It's proving that an empire built on ruthless efficiency can also retain the trust of the people who depend on it. The AI future. Broadcom is no longer just following the AI wave, it's shaping it. The company's Jericho 4 fabric router, launched in 2025, can interconnect clusters of over 1 million processors, making Ethernet the backbone of large-scale AI training. Alongside it, the Tomahawk 6 and Tomahawk Ultra switches are already designed into the next generation of hyperscale data centers. The message is clear. Broadcom isn't just participating in AI, it's setting the plumbing standard for the next decade. On the silicon side, Broadcom's custom AI accelerators have become a quiet alternative to Nvidia's GPUs. Built in deep collaboration with hyperscalers, these ASICs handle specific workloads more efficiently, cheaper, and with lower power draw. Analysts estimate Broadcom already commands the majority share of the AI ASIC market, a position that could expand as hyperscalers seek independence from Nvidia's supply chain. Even the boardroom has been rewired for AI. In 2025, Broadcom tied CEO Hock Tan's compensation to long-term AI revenue milestones: $90 billion, $105 billion, and $120 billion in fiscal years 2028 through 2030. It's one of the most aggressive pay structures in corporate history, an explicit bet that AI will dominate Broadcom's future. But futures are never guaranteed. The same hyperscalers fueling today's growth could insource designs tomorrow. AI build-outs could hit digestion phases. And Ethernet's dominance, while strong, still faces pressure from Nvidia's InfiniBand in the highest performance clusters. Still, if history is a guide, Broadcom thrives on building foundations others overlook: mainframes, storage, networking, now AI. Each step has been less about glamour and more about control. The question for investors isn't whether Broadcom is riding the AI wave. It's whether the company can turn that wave into a permanent shoreline, an infrastructure empire that outlasts the hype cycle. If it succeeds, Broadcom may become what Nvidia already is: a household name in the AI age. If it stumbles, it will still have built the invisible scaffolding that made this era possible. Closing thought. Broadcom's path into the trillion-dollar club is no longer just about networking and VMware. It's also about XPUs, custom accelerators purpose-built with hyperscalers to run specific AI workloads with better cost and power efficiency than general-purpose GPUs. GPUs will remain the backbone for training the largest frontier models. They're unmatched when flexibility and rapid iteration matter. But as models move from training to mass-scale inference and productionized services, search, recommendation, assistant features, hyperscalers want lower total cost of ownership, predictable supply, and IP control. That's the opening for Broadcom's XPU program. Three dynamics are pushing this forward. First, credible sell-side work now frames AI ASICs, XPUs, as a fast-growing slice of accelerators, highlighting their efficiency on targeted workloads and Broadcom's outsized share of that niche. Second, customer momentum. Multiple hyperscalers already co-design with Broadcom, and reporting points to a fourth marquee client, a sign that XPUs are becoming a strategic complement to GPU fleets rather than a sideshow. Third, the network effect. Broadcom's Ethernet roadmap, Tomahawk switches and Jericho fabric routers, explicitly scales to hundreds of thousands to over 1 million XPUs, turning standards-based Ethernet into the default plumbing for non-proprietary AI factories. If Broadcom continues to convert XPU wins into multi-year silicon programs and routes them over its own Ethernet stack, the company isn't just selling parts, it's shaping the alternative AI platform, custom compute plus open networking at hyperscale. Pair that with high-margin software cash flows from VMware and Symantec, and the thesis sharpens. Broadcom can compound cash and capture a growing share of AI capex without betting the farm on any single model or vertical. That's why recent analyst notes increasingly place Broadcom among the few with a credible claim to sustained trillion-dollar status. The outcome still depends on execution. Customer concentration, AI capex digestion, and VMware sentiment all matter. But the strategic arc is clear. If GPUs are the star quarterbacks of AI, XPUs are the offensive line you build dynasties on, and Broadcom is quietly signing the best in the league. If you liked this video, subscribe and hit the like button. Thank you for watching.